Another transition strategy that we can use is to use a transitional expression. And this is probably one of the most common, but I mention the others because we don't want to rely on transitional expressions over and over and over, creating a pattern that our reader is not going to like. Our readers often don't like to see patterns in writing. We think of sentences that are the same length or sentences that begin or end with the same words. We want to avoid those types of patterns. So we use a transitional expression, but mix in the others as well. So a transitional expression is just words or phrases that link one idea with another. Transitional expressions have a certain purpose in showing direction, so it really matters which one that you use. For example, we can show relationship in space. So imagine that you are describing a place. You can describe it from top to bottom, left to right. We want to describe it spatially. So we can use transitional expressions like below, next to the left of, beyond. All of these are showing direction. For example, toughest park has many amusement rides to entertain the children. So we've ended a paragraph with this sentence, and now we're moving to another paragraph or another place in the description. So we could say, next to the rides is a miniature golf course designed with teens in mind. Okay, so I'm showing that spatial relationship that this is next to the other, and I'm moving in some type of pattern. If we want to show relationships in time, so we think about your narrative, for example, that you're moving linearly through time, you're moving from one moment to the next moment. We could use words like before, meanwhile, after, when. All of these are going to indicate that we are moving in time. We can also look at that in a process. So maybe we end with sanding is an important part of furniture restoration and should not be ignored. We're now moving to the next step. So we'd say after the surface has been prepped, one may begin applying the stain. Okay, so we're seeing that relationship linearly through time itself. We're moving from one step to the next step to the next step. In addition, we can show addition. We can show something being added. So you see that I use that phrase. In addition, we can also use also, furthermore, moreover. Okay, so I'm making maybe another point. So I'm bringing in more evidence. I might use this in addition. We can look at something like this. Brushing your teeth twice a day will help reduce cavities. Okay, so maybe this paragraph was all about brushing, and now I'm moving to a new topic, but I'm adding to whatever evidence I was bringing in to support that thesis. So I say, in addition, flossing is recommended as well to strengthen the gum line. So I'm adding more evidence, but it's a different category. So I need to show that through maybe this transitional expression as I move to that next paragraph. If we want to intensify a point, we think of when we're giving our evidence, we might want to give a real world example that will intensify that point. So we're not relying on studies now. We're now going to get into a specific example. We get something like, as an example, specifically, indeed, or in fact, and now we're going to give that more specific point. We can look at something like this. Both MTV and CMT have opted for reality programs in lieu of music videos. Now we're going to intensify this point, or we're going to give more specific evidence. So I would say, in fact, only 5% of MTV's viewing schedule is dedicated to music programming. Now this, you'll see that this is evidence for the previous statement. So this is more likely to be a transition between sentences than in paragraphs. We can also use it to show similarities. If we're using a compare contrast essay, we can use words like likewise, similarly, or in the same way. We could say President Trump believes the deficit needs to be reduced in order to avoid a global economic crash. And then similarly, Democrats have proposed reducing the debt over the next few years. So we can see in the first paragraph, we're probably talking about President Trump or the Republicans. And then we're shifting to Democrats and we're saying, they believe the same things. And so we're moving to a new paragraph, but we're showing that similarity. We can also do this to show contrasts. If we're contrasting ideas, we would say although, even though, however, while this may be true, we don't want to use cliches like on the other side of the coin or on the other hand. It's better to use just a term like although or however, just to avoid any of those cliches. So let's contrast these two ideas. Researchers have come a long way in understanding the causes of Alzheimer's. Okay, so we've given a lot of evidence in this paragraph, and we conclude with this statement that they're doing better understanding Alzheimer's. But now we're going to transition, or we're going to contrast that idea. We're going to say, while this may be true, many acknowledge that they are no closer to finding a cure. So now we're moving to a new idea that a cure is still a long ways away. And I show that contrast with this phrase, while this may be true. We can also use them to show cause and effect. If we're thinking of a cause and effect type paper, where we look at an action and the effects from that action, we can use words like accordingly, as a result, consequently, since. These might be handy if we're using logic. So in logic, we're looking at facts and we're saying if this fact is true, and if this fact is true, and if this fact is true, then, and so we're saying accordingly or consequently, we're going to get some type of result. We look at an example here. The city has made many efforts in reducing crime through its stop and frisk policy. Okay, so we're looking at this policy. We're hoping to reduce crime. However, consequently, because of this policy, so we're looking at cause and effect, reports of citizen harassment have risen dramatically. So we're seeing that because this policy was put into place, we now have a lot more reports of citizen harassment. Okay, so that consequently is showing this cause and effect. And then we can use it to conclude or summarize. We think of words like finally, in conclusion, in summary. I don't mind these in your final paragraph. You might have instructors who do want you to use something other than these, something other than in conclusion at least. But I think that's a nice way to maybe end your essay. We just want to make sure that if we use something like to conclude or in conclusion, that we are wrapping up the essay. We look at this one, the purpose of showers is often different than the purpose of baths. So maybe this is the final piece of evidence in the body paragraphs. And now we're moving to the conclusion. We'd say, in conclusion, the preference of taking a shower instead of a bath does not indicate anything about a person's hygiene. Okay, so I'm saying in conclusion, I'm wrapping up all of the body paragraphs now into this final paragraph. So it's showing that relationship.